Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Sweden once again, and this is one of my local breweries from Lund, and I managed to get another one of their new beers to bring back with me to Durham for the moment. But as I said, I'll be returning to Sweden in August, so you will see many more of these reviews. So for this one we are going to go to Landskrona, which is now of course home to Brekeriet, and these guys are well known for being the sort of Swedish sour beer brewery. So for this one we're going to have a taste of the Wrapped in Red. This one's a Berliner Weiss at 5.6%, and it's fermented with cherries, raspberries and strawberries, so should be a pretty interesting beer. This one got an 88 overall on Rate Beer, and I think it was just about 4 stars on Untappd. But as I always say with the Brekeriet beers, I always find the Rate Beer ratings are quite low for these compared to what they should be. I've had very good experiences with this brewery in the past and always enjoy trying new things from them. I think probably my favourite beer that I've had from these guys was the Swedish Ninja, which was an orange sour beer that was a collaboration with Pipeworks from Chicago. But there has been some really good beers. Purple Rain was nice as well. I believe that's one of the kind of regular ones they're doing for Systembolaget, but I always enjoy trying the new different ones because they play around with this sour beer style so much. But these guys are definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you really want to check out, and I highly recommend that you do if you get the chance. They're starting to export their beers now, so for those of you outside of Sweden, make sure you have a go at some of them. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, link to my other reviews that I've done from Brekeriet before. This is my 7th or 8th review from these guys, if I remember correctly. No doubt there will be some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. And a big shout out in particular to the Swedish followers of the channel. You guys have been really awesome over the last couple of years. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brekeriet then. So as I've told you before, Brekeriet were originally based in Djurslev, which is just a little bit outside of Malmö, but they're now based primarily in Landskrona, which is kind of halfway between Helsingborg to the north and Lund to the south, on the sort of southwest coast of Skåne in Sweden. So the company were founded back in 2011 by the Ek brothers. This is Fredrik, Christian and Andre, and they're a specialist brewery in wild beers or sour beers, however you want to describe them, using Brettanomyces. And these guys were the first brewery in Sweden to do this, and as far as I know they remain the only completely specialised brewery in Sweden that are doing this to date. But the original brewery was based in the old brewhouse in Djurslev, which was actually a commune brewery for local farmers. They brewed their first beers there back in 2012, and this brewery had a very kind of modest capacity of only 500 litres per brew, which gave them a yearly capacity of around 38,000 litres. But as of 2015 they have a new brewery at Landskrona which can produce 20 hectolitres per brew, and they also have a fermentation capacity of around 80 hectolitres. And apparently they produce their wild bunch beers continuously in Landskrona, and they brew, I think they actually brew the vast majority of their beers up at Landskrona now, if not all of them. I think there might be 1 or 2 things that are still brewed down at Djurslev. But in 2014 they actually caused a little bit of a stir as well, because they withdrew from Systembolaget, which is the nationalised beer store chain that exists in Sweden, and I can understand kind of why they did it. They were citing bureaucracy and issues with the nationalised system as the main reason for doing it. So with Systembolaget there's some really strange rules. For example, I think if a local brewery is allowed free access to their 3 most local stores, they also get a reduced access in terms of delivery costs to their local county as well. But when it comes to sending their beer further afield than that, I think there's a lot more kind of costs and things that breweries can incur. So it does restrict some of these local breweries. And from what I gather as well, they have to produce their beers a year in advance and get them taste tested and things like that with Systembolaget, just because of all the paperwork and stuff. But they are starting to liberalise the system from what I understand. There are advantages to it, such as you can order beers from any part of Sweden generally, unless the brewery decides they don't want them put nationwide, and it does keep the costs of some of the craft beers down as well, which is pretty good. So it's a kind of Schadenfreude system, I guess you could say. But apparently though, so from 2016 they did actually start to put their beers back in Systembolaget. But when I went over to Sweden at first, you couldn't get these beers for love nor money. I was having to go to Kiosk in Copenhagen to get a hold of these beers when they were one of my local breweries. So that was a little bit frustrating. But these guys do some really awesome stuff, like I said, and I'm glad that they got these issues sorted and they got their beers back into Systembolaget. So yeah, as I say, Brekeriet are one of the Swedish breweries that you really want to check out if you enjoy your sour beers. If you're a fan of like wild beer company, for example, in England, I'm sure you'll enjoy some of the beers that Brekeriet produce as well. It would be cool to see those guys do a collaboration actually. I'm not sure if they've done that already, but that would be one that I'd love to see in the future. But that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now. Have a look at the brewery website and Facebook page and stuff. You'll find the links to those in the description below, but let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a Berliner Weiss. It's fermented with cherries, raspberries and strawberries, and it comes in at 5.6%. It says on the style here, on the side here, sorry, wrapped in red is part of our collection of beers known as the Specials, made as experimental batches in limited edition. I thought this was one of the regular ones actually when I bought it, but yeah, I always like trying different beers from these guys. They're always playing around with these kind of sour beer styles. There you can see the regular Brekeriet bottle cap on this one. There's not really much more to say about that. As I say, it's standard artwork from Brekeriet. So without further ado then, let's get it out and get on with the tasting. I always enjoy trying these beers. Nice smoky opening there, as you can see. So let's get it out and into the glass. And that's one of the things you always can count on with Brekeriet as well. You always get some really interesting colours when it comes to the beers. I'm sure the Purple Rain was actually a nice kind of dark red colour. I was expecting it to be a kind of candied purple or something like that, but it really was an interesting beer, that, so hopefully this one lives up to that too, but I'm sure it will. So as you can see, this beer is poured a really kind of hazy kind of candied pink colour. There's a finger or so of a frothy bright pink head on this one. It's almost like a kind of sherbet pink colour actually, but it looks really nice. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a couple of little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. You can smell a little bit of the fruity character coming off this one. You can get some of the cherries actually and raspberries coming out of it. Not so much the strawberry, but you can smell some of that sharp, tart citric lemon too. You can see there's, if you put your fingers behind the glass, there's quite a bit of opacity to this beer. It's not completely see-through, but overall, you know, it does look pretty nice and kind of what you'd expect from a sour beer. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. Yeah. So for me, the cherries are dominating with this one. If I'm honest with you, I'm not the greatest fan of cherries, but I'm just, you know, I'm always willing to give things a go. Cherry flavour was something that never really quite cottoned on with me, but as my palate's kind of matured and stuff, I think I've got a little bit more used to it in desserts and things, so we'll see how we get on with this beer. So do bear that in mind when it comes to me kind of critiquing this beer. But yeah, you can smell the nice raspberries in there as well. The raspberries are quite juicy, and the strawberries come across as kind of quite candied, to be honest. You can smell them at the front of the nose. The raspberries kind of sit in the middle, and at the back of the nose, if you take it in a bit more deeply, that's when you really start to get the cherries. I think the cherries are kind of dominating the aroma in that way. I'm not sure if it's just that cherries have a more kind of prominent aroma to them, but yeah, I think the cherries are dominating the fruity side of this beer. Like I say, there's a little bit of a kind of sharp, lemony, citric character to this one. A wee bit of a kind of grassy note from the hops as well. And there's a bit of a sort of nice wheaty note in there too, which is quite interesting. So yeah, as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. This has pretty much everything you'd expect from a Berliner Weiss. I think the cherries are dominating it, but you do get the raspberries and strawberries in it too. So without further ado then, let's have a little taste of this beer. So this one is the Wrapped in Red, a Berliner Weiss fermented with cherries, strawberries and raspberries from Brekeriet in Landskrona in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål. That's pretty nice actually. One of the things I always find with Brekeriet, they're always really good at just finding the balance between being sour and having a little bit of malty sweetness to kind of balance it out actually. They're really good at this Berliner Weiss style. I mean, one of the things with the sour beers is, I mean, you can do sour IPAs, you can do sour black IPAs, you can just do sour fruit beers, you can do Berliner Weisses and all of these kind of things. And these guys just, I don't think they really consider themselves kind of bound by any sort of style, if you like, and you know, that's the way you want to be. If you can produce a good beer, to be honest with you, and it tastes nice, who really cares exactly what category it fits into? And to me, that's one of the things that Brekeriet do. I mean, the Swedish Ninja, as I said, that was this kind of strange orange beer. I can't remember if that was meant to be an IPA. I remember it was good, and it tasted like oranges, like they said. It worked out really well. The Purple Rain was another one. It was a sour beer, but I can't even remember if that was supposed to, I think it was meant to be a Berliner Weiss, but it just worked out really nicely. And again, this one just does the same. It just goes together really well, and I think that's what Brekeriet are really good at. I think they've got a kind of solid base when it comes to producing Berliner Weisses, and they just like to kind of play around with the different fruits and stuff. But they've done this one again, and it's, you know, for this style, it's pretty much spot on. Sour beers, of course, aren't to everyone's taste, but what I would say to you is, when I started trying these beers, it does take you a few to get used to them. So if you don't like them originally, try a few different ones, take a few sips, and just try and get used to it, because you can get a lot out of this beer style once you're fully aware of kind of what it's all about. But yeah, I really like that actually, and I wasn't expecting to like this one as much as I do. As I said, you know, I'm not the greatest fan of cherries, to be quite honest. But the cherries in this one, I think all three of the fruits kind of balance the beer out a little bit better. If it was a pure cherry sour beer, I'm not quite sure how I would react to it. But in terms of the way it comes out, it's actually just really, really nice. The fruity note of this one is just lovely. So I have to say, before we even go into the flavour in too much depth, a thumbs up to Brekeriet on this once again. They've done a good job with it, but you know, to be honest, I wouldn't have expected any less from them. So yeah, with this one, I don't think it's quite as sharp in terms of the tart character as some of the other ones have been. It comes in quite sharp, and then you'll feel the malt base, that sort of wheaty Berliner Weiss malt base just pushes its way out a little bit more, and as you push further and further into the aftertaste, the sour beer quality, the sort of Brettanomyces things kind of return a little bit and just sit there, and the malt kind of comes out a little bit more towards the front of your tongue, and you can get just a little bit from the hoppy side of the beer as well. It's an interesting flavour profile, this one, in terms of how the flavour progresses, but it does really work quite well. So yeah, with this one then, as I say, your malt base is quite nice. You can feel that nice, smooth, wheaty character just blanket the middle of your palate. It's almost a little bit sweet as well, which is quite nice. You can feel a little bit of that nice doughy, bready sweetness to it. I want to say there's maybe even a kind of little touch of biscuit in there, in the very centre of the palate. But the fruity notes are just lovely on this one. So you can feel there's a little bit of a, I want to say it's a kind of German noble hop quality. You can feel that around the edge of the tongue. There's a little touch of earthiness, some kind of grassiness. There's a little bit of floral character. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, you can pick up a little bit of a kind of grassy note in there as well. But then the fruity side of this beer is where it really gets interesting. There's almost a kind of U shape just around, just inside from the edge of your tongue, and that's where these kind of citricy, tart, that sort of tart, lemony, citricy quality comes out of the beer. And then the juicy side of the fruits, they kind of just sort of almost suppress that hoppy side of the beer from being too bitter. But as I say, as the flavour mellows out, you do start to get a little bit of the grassy character from the hops just sitting there. I do suspect from the earthy quality that's at the back corner of the palate, I do suspect they are using German noble hops, maybe Tecknanger or Hallertau or something like that in this beer. It does have that kind of vibe about it for me. But yeah, with this one, I would say it's quite hard to pick out exactly what fruit is taking the lead in this beer. They all kind of mix together really quite well. I'd say at the back end of the beer, like you've seen how long it was since I took a sip, I'd say that the raspberries and some of the strawberries are sitting there. You're getting a bit of the tartness from the raspberries, and some of the lighter, almost kind of more candied sort of flavours from the strawberries are sitting there too. There's I think some of the cherries are coming across a little bit as well, but I think at the back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of the cherry sitting there just inside the tongue, but as you come further forward, you can feel the raspberries a bit more. Then towards the very front of the tongue, I think that's where I'm getting the strawberry parts of this beer. So it's quite interesting that the beer sort of breaks up in that way. You guys might perceive it differently, of course, because, you know, beer is always subjective. We're all going to detect slightly different things and think that things are different things and stuff like that. But for me, it's just interesting to see. It's in the fact that's what's interesting about this one is that all three of these individual fruits do come out at certain points of the beer, and that's, you know, it's a really kind of clever feat, if you like, and Brekeriet are a brewery that are capable of build and taste things like that, so it's cool. It's a really interesting beer, this one. I always like it because you always get something unusual from these guys, or something that you don't quite expect. That's why I always like reviewing these Brekeriet beers for you. But in terms of the Berliner Weiss, I think they've done a nice job with it, and again, I'm not surprised because these guys, they're a specialist sour beer brewery. They've built their reputation on that, and they get quite a lot of plaudits for it. As I said, this beer was rated an 88 overall on Rate Beer, and to be honest, I would say that it probably deserves a little bit more than that. It should be well into the mid-90s, I would think. I always find that with the Brekeriet beers. They're always rated a little bit lower than I would rate them. And I think, to be honest, the reason for that is probably that Rate Beer is a kind of American-dominated site. Americans are really used to having a lot of hops in with these kind of sour beers as well. They're used to more kind of sour IPAs and things like that, I would say. I could be talking rubbish here, because you do have breweries like Wicked Weed, and there's another one that I forget the name of just now from Arizona. But they've got they do have a couple of breweries over there that are specialised in sour beers and things like that. But I think the ones that they have over there tend to be the sour IPAs and stuff, and I think that's why these beers get rated a little bit lower. I might be speculating there, but at least that's my kind of perception on it. Do correct me if I'm wrong. But I think this one should be kind of rated into the mid kind of 90s. I would always rate a sour IPA as a kind of different category to a straight up kind of sour beer Berliner Weiss like this one. But for me, it certainly has everything that you'd want from the style. It's got the nice malty character, it's got the nice kind of juicy fruity notes, and it's got that bit of sharp citric character and a little bit of a kind of hoppy note in there as well to back it up. So it's a really good beer. Is it the best one that Brekeriet have done? To be honest, I don't quite know, because they've done a hell of a lot of different things, but the fact is they keep producing lots of different beers, and they do tend to be of a very good quality. So to be honest, there's not much more that you can ask for them in that regard. It's another really, really solid beer from Brekeriet, and I would recommend that you have a go at it. If you like the Purple Rain, if you like the kind of feel that their beers have, this is another one that kind of fits quite firmly into that category. It's just done with different fruits, really. So I'm just going to give a big thumbs up to this one and say I think it should be rated a little bit higher on Rate Beer than it actually is. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this, have a go at it. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say it's at the lighter end of mid-bodied. Carbonation does have a little bit of a prickle to it, to be honest. I always expect that when it comes to sour beers. You want them to have a little bit more of a carbonation because it helps bring out some of the tart aspects of the flavour. It's got a good little bit of oily character to it, this one. A lot of nice juicy fruity notes. Good bit of that sharp tart citric character, but not overbearing, not puckering if you like. A little bit of hoppy bitterness, and then the malt base, pardon me, just has a nice little bit of that kind of wheaty sweetness in there. So as I say, they've done a good job with this beer. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again and again. It's another one of these very, very solid Berliner Weisses that you're going to find from Brekeriet. So have a go at it and see what you think. If you enjoy the other beers that they do, I'm sure that you will enjoy this one as well. So yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of sign off on this one. So this was the Wrapped in Red, a Berliner Weiss at 5.6% brewed with cherries, strawberries and raspberries from Brekeriet in Landskrona in Skåne in Sweden. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Check out my social media and things like that. Let me know your favourite beers from Brekeriet, and do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me check out. So until the next time, Slange just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you try some of these Brekeriet beers. This is another pretty damn good one. Wrapped in Red from Brekeriet in Landskrona in Skåne in Sweden. Skål.